This is Slang AI, one of the fastest growing companies in AI hospitality. They've raised over $50 million and are scaling really well. But with scale comes a new set of challenges and opportunities on the go-to-market side. I'm Mark Roberge, co-founder of Stage 2 Capital, and today I'm joined by Sambvani, founder of Slang AI. Every startup eventually faces the same problem. You have more opportunities than resources, more customers, more channels, and more hiring decisions, but you have no idea how to scale all of it. So today, we're going to build Slang AI's next growth strategy. So Alex, tell us what Slang AI does.
Our core is really voice AI. So we have a voice AI agent that answers the phone for restaurants and can book reservations, answer questions, and help with private events. So after spending 2025 narrowing and really refining our go-to-market strategy, there are some really big challenges that we're grappling with as we go from really the Series A to the Series B stage and beyond. So one challenge that we're working through is growing the org, which we brought in a new sales leader to help us manage that. So there's so many decisions that come along with bringing in a leader like this and growing the organization, things like territory, comp plans, rep profile, rules of engagement, all of the quotas, rep math, like all of that stuff as we scale are things that we're working through right now. And kind of a sub-bullet of that, that's another actually big challenge, is really enterprise. So how do we go up market? We started in the SMB, and now we're starting to get a lot of traction in enterprise, but it's an under-resourced strategy. Most of our resources are allocated towards SMB, and there's a lot of opportunity and early traction in enterprise, but we're not experts in that yet. And then the last, which I'm probably most excited about, is new product expansion. So historically, we've pretty much been one product over the past almost 7 years of running this business. And this year, we're going from 1 to at least 3 product lines, which is going to bring a lot more organization complexity, especially on the go-to-market side. How do we do that? How do we resource those things? And how do we know how much to invest in each of those product lines? Because investment in these 2 new product lines takes away from the core, and we don't want to cannibalize that too much, because even the core is still early. You know, there's still a lot more room to grow in the core business. So these are 3 things we're grappling with right now.
All right, Alex, so let's dive into the first problem.
So the problem is we have this new sales leader. She's amazing, but there's so much going on in the org, and I feel like my job now is to keep her focused on the most important things, and really being almost like an objective third party and optimizing her time and making sure, you know, the team below her is being leveraged in the best way, and kind of seeing blind spots that she doesn't see. And so I'm really struggling with, you know, how to do that, with what's the right way for, like, she's truly the expert in these things. And so I don't want to like tell her what to do, but I also know that she needs me to kind of help her prioritize and give her the right direction. So figuring out like that right altitude of, you know, working with her.
Sure.
And directing her.
Okay, that's a great question we need to dive into. Why don't we start by having you map out what the organization looks like today?
Totally, let's do it. So the org is relatively simple today. So we've got our revenue leader here, VP of Rev, and underneath our VP of Revenue Gen, we have 3 directors. 2 sales directors, so we have a West Coast sales director, we have an East Coast sales director, and then we have a customer success director, which for short we just call CX. And then beneath these teams, we have AEs. So we've got AEs on the West, we've got AEs on the East. We also have a growth AE, one growth AE who sits on the East team, who's solely focused on expansion, but they're, you know, we can count them as part of AEs. We've got about 6 AEs on each side, plus or minus a couple. And then on the CX side, we actually have 2 sub-teams. We have implementation, and then we have classic CX. Mm-hmm. And so both of these roll up. Implementation is pretty self-explanatory. They're in charge of the first getting a customer activated on the product, and then CX is really that ongoing relationship manager, account management type of deal. So this is what the org looks like as well, and we've got, or on that side, we've got 4 implementation managers and 5 CX. And I'm at the top. Actually, I also missed someone.
Yep.
We do have an enterprise director here who's an IC, which is super important. This is a new motion for us. We just hired our first, and our enterprise director reports directly to our VP of revenue, and she's just like a super senior, killer seller. The questions really are, these two parts of the team are relatively stable. We've been doing SMB sales pretty much since we started selling into our industry. We're really just growing this and scaling this responsibly. Not too many questions about this. Like, we're pretty good at this. This side of the house, in terms of customer success, is getting more complicated for a couple of reasons. Number one, the customer base is growing, and so we're having to build new systems, new ways of measuring customer health, all of those things, and we're also launching new products. And so implementation is going to get more complicated, and ongoing customer success is going to be more complicated as well. So figuring out how the org complexity affects CX and what is the right structure of the CX team is a question, but I would say the even bigger question and meatier topic is enterprise. We're finding a lot of success in enterprise, and we really right now it's a team of one. We have one seller in enterprise, so we're trying to think through how do we go from one enterprise seller, a pod, an enterprise pod? What does that look like? Do we have 2 sellers? Do we have 3 sellers? Do we pair them with enterprise customer success people? How many? Should we have juniors? When we bring in more enterprise sellers, should they be at the director level, or is it time to bring in maybe more junior enterprise sellers? Should we be promoting from the AE SMB pool into maybe a junior enterprise role, or should we be hiring externally? All of these types of questions are coming up now, and also the balancing of resources between SMB and enterprise. This is our core, but there's a lot of potential here, and if we nail this, that's really juicy revenue that's also sticky, but we don't want to invest and starve the SMB motion, which is working. So really 2 questions there. It's like, from a team perspective, how do we go from one to several, and that gets to the resourcing question as well, and how do we balance enterprise versus SMB. These are all of the kind of like customer facing roles. We also started building our RevOps function. So we now have a head of RevOps who reports to our VP of revenue, and then we also, underneath our head of RevOps, we have a go-to-market engineer, which is super buzzy new role, but super high leverage if you can get someone good. So now we have, the problem that we have is that the org has grown very quickly. We do have a lot of different resources for my VP of revenue, and I'm trying to keep her focused on the things that she uniquely can do while making sure that she's delegating the right things to the leaders beneath her.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's break this down, and I'm actually gonna erase it now, okay? All right, Alex, those are great questions, super common questions, actually right out of Science is Scaling. So this is gonna be fun to unpack. The mistake that many founders make here is committing to revenue on new products or new markets before you've adequately proven them out, okay? So I'm gonna do a quick framing here, Alex, that's super abstract that any founder can use. A product market matrix, okay? So we have our existing product, which is what's the name of that product at Slang?
You can call it the AI host.
Okay, so at Slangs, it's the AI host, okay? They have product market fit, and we'll get into what that means. And then there's the existing market, which is, we'll call it...
Just call it full serve, FS, or for full serve restaurants.
Now, we presumably have product market fit, and go-to-market fit, and you can read or watch a lot of our episodes to know what those mean. So we are successfully in scale mode here. And that's essentially what Alex's team is doing, the 2 6 reps. And we have 2 ways to expand our TAM and unlock new scale channels. So one way to do it is sell our existing product to a new market. Okay, so Alex, in your case, you're selling to the enterprise.
Going from SMB to enterprise.
And we can do both. Like at Alex's scale, we should be experimenting with a handful of new markets and or new products at any given time. It's really just a matter of how much do we want to be investing into the the known box versus the new boxes. And that's one of the questions he's grappling with. I would argue that putting 100% in the known box and doing no experiments, you're going to run out of TAM. Right? Versus if you do 80% in the new boxes and only 20% in the known boxes, what happens, Alex?
Your growth stalls.
Your growth stalls, and you're putting all this resources into experiments, right? So that's the trade-off. And like, I don't know if I have an exact formula, but we can do some math to figure out that trade-off. But my guess would be, it might be something like 70 to 80% of the investment should be in the known to maximize scale, and 20 to 30% should be in the experiments to expand our TAM, okay? Now, the other way we can do is we can build new products for the existing market. And I'm not gonna put Alex on the spot because often we're doing like some stealth stuff, but like, let's just kind of label that here, okay? So we're bringing a new product. Now, the mistake that people make is, I'll make up some numbers. Let's assume that these are not correct, but let's just say we're trying to go from 10 million to 40 million in 2027, okay? So the mistake that a lot of people make, Alex, in your seat is you'll kind of look at the 2027 plan and be like, oh, when we scale this up as fast as possible, it takes us from 10 to 30 million. Mm-hmm. So we're 10 million short in our aspirations. And so I have an idea. Let's go to the enterprise. And I'm going to commit $5 million contribution from that in 2027. And let's build a new product. And I'm going to assume we get $5 million. And they put it all in the same team. And guess what? Just like when you started the company, you didn't like in year one be like, we're going to write this product and I'm going to do 10 million in the first year. What did you do?
Took a few years.
Right, to do what?
To test, learn, experiment, and
how did you know when you were ready to scale?
For us, we looked at a couple things. We looked at retention,
yes,
and then acquisition costs,
yes,
which we measured through payback.
So basically what Alex is saying in another way is they found product market fit as measured by retention, and they found go-to-market fit as measured by the unit economics of their scale. So that's what we have to do, is we have to check off those boxes as quickly as possible within these new segments. Okay, now, one other concept is the reality of we're in this AI era, and you happen to be in a fairly high blitzscale pressure situation.
Totally.
Okay? So the way that translates it, if we were doing like medical devices where they are fairly protected, the pressure on scale is low, and the tolerance for bugs is very low because it's life-threatening. We're going to have a very high bar on when we wave success on product market fit.
Right.
Like we want to see 99% of our customers seeing value.
Right.
Okay. You're in a heavy blitzscale situation, so you're probably going to pick a lower number. Maybe 40 or 50% are seeing value, with the hopes that we can keep driving that up as we move to the go-to-market fit. And we may see that unit, the payback period is say 20 months and we'll go, hoping that we can drive that down with scale. Okay, so that's how we translate that in. So just to recap where we are so far, most founders in Alex's seat, let's say someone's trying to go from 10 to 40, will realize that where they have product market fit and go-to-market fit only gets them from 10 to 30. So on the moment, they will actually say they're going to go into a new market and say they're going to go into a new product, and they just start scaling right away, as opposed to rediscovering the product market fit and the go-to-market fit arenas. So the key questions or key decisions that Alex has to make is, what % of my resources do I invest into the known? And how many experiments, what % of resources I invest in the new, which dictates the number of experiments I have. Now it's just up to the team. Does it take a week to find product market fit or a year? Does it take a week to get to the go-to-market fit that we want or a year? And that's just pure execution to expand that TAM.
Well, what's at the top right?
Okay.
So new products and new...
This is rare that you would do this.
Yeah.
This is essentially building a new product for a new market.
Got it.
There's just so many good markets that we can take our existing product to, and there's so many new products. The one thing that I'll say that's fairly unique in AI today, there's a big why now, is especially in a more of a vertical software arena, is I have a leniency toward this. There's a why now around it, because vertical software had an amazing decade. We had some great winners like Toast in the sector that you're going after,
right?
And also like Service Titan, let's say, in more of the contractor services arena. Even though those companies absolutely crushed it, let's take Toast in restaurants for example. It's not the only software that restaurant runs, and I think given the ability to build products so quickly in a lot of markets. You're better off going really deep and try to own the entire operating system, the tech stack of that business. And because of that, you can drive up your ACV in what used to be non-VC backable markets. Because the ACV is so high, they become quite interesting. So there's a little bit of a why now that in just abstract situations, there's more weight put on new products for your existing market. All right, so Alex, you had put out this beautiful org design,
right?
Okay, so now let's take this and translate it into your org design. All right, so you have your VP of sales, okay, and you have your West team and your East team, and you have 6 salespeople under each, okay. So what this means is if you're going to hire 5 salespeople a month, you're going to put them all in, mostly all in here, okay? Because we're scaling the known. Now we have these this is the scale. And then we have, let's just simplify it down to 2 tests. A new market test with enterprise, and we have a new product test, okay?
And should that be there should be dedicated
yes,
salespeople
it looks
under
just like when you started the company. Right, so there's a lot of different variations of it. It's probably like a go-to-market athlete, let's call it. Someone that can do everything.
Right.
Okay. There's definitely like a PM in here. If we bring in the R&D, there's like 2 engineers. But these look like startups in themselves, where their North Star is not a revenue contribution. Their North Star is find product market fit as measured by retention and lead indicators retention as quickly as possible, and then find go-to-market fit as quickly as possible. And we're talking to the board and be like, we're hoping to have this unlocked by November so we can move it over here and start adding reps. But in the meantime, as I add 5 reps a month, I put them all in the scale mode, and I'm having an organization. We call this, I'm going to quote a colleague of mine at Harvard Business School, Michael Tushman, very famous work called the ambidextrous organization. And that work is coming to life here. As we know, ambidextrous is use your right hand and your left hand equally. And what Alex is building, he's an ambidextrous CEO that's building an ambidextrous organization that knows how to exploit the known and explore the new. And that's how we set up this org design and how we let your new VP of sales structure things and hit that target. Questions?
That makes sense. I love this. I think this org structure is super clear. All right, like we have a budget, right? Like we don't have infinite budget.
Yes.
We have to allocate our budget across these 3 different things. So if I'm trying to decide, how much to allocate to the core versus these 2 tests, how should I think about that? Should I just think about the core and be like, that needs to be fully funded and anything over that goes to the other experiments, or how would you think about it?
We sort of walked that through, but now that you see it on paper,
right.
I think we talked through that like, okay, 100% here and none of this is Ron, because
100, because then we can't get, if we were trying to go from 10 to 40, we can't actually do all of that.
You're going to have a total addressable market problem versus 10% here and 90% here is Ron because
then our growth slows and we're not fueling the fire that we already have.
Yeah, exactly. So this is where a little bit of creativity, I can't bring necessarily the quant back.
Right, gotcha.
I think it's probably going to be about 70 to 80%.
Okay, so that gets back to that.
And that might mean that like if you're going to choose something like 70% here and 30% here to really prioritize TAM expansion, we might have to sell the board on this instead. Versus if you want to go like 90% here and 10% here, we might be able to like give ourselves some cushion and actually please the board and actually beat the number. So these are the trade-offs that we're doing and how we tack it back to the top line.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. My other question was going to be, how do you think about how fast to go?
We could put 2 or 3 reps in there from the beginning and really invest to move them up the ramp and increase our learning cycles, knowing that it's not going to be the most efficient spend from a unit economic standpoint. We can certainly move this into the scale bucket Before it like 90% of seeing value, instead it's like 50% of seeing value.
Right.
We can move into the scale bucket when our payback period is 20 months, not 11. So we're just hoping that while we're scaling it, we can fix it. It's not ideal, but neither is waiting.
Okay,
Half
cool.
of the founders wait too long and scale too slow. Half of the founders go too fast and scale too early. And at least we're framing the decision in math. Yeah, so anyway, when you go from 40 to 35 and then, wait, where did Alex go? How do you know when it's really time to scale? Most founders get this wrong. Half of them scale too late and miss the window. Half of them scale too early and burn all the capital. That's why we created the Revenue Leaders Guide to Scaling. It's a free resource packed with lessons from top revenue leaders at companies like HubSpot, Gong, Toast, Miro, and Rippling. Inside, you'll learn how to measure product market fit, identify the leading indicators of retention, and know when you're truly ready to invest in growth. Download it for free in the link below. Yo, can someone find Alex? Yeah, so the other thing, we've already talked about like founder, manage the VP of sales. 1, forecast accuracy. 2 is you can do skip level reviews. Have you done these before?
I have.
Do you know what this is?
I have done them, but I admit that I'm a little unclear on what you're supposed to do.
Okay, yeah, good. What this basically means is Alex has his regular one with his VP of sales. He goes down in the organization and has reviews with other people. The director, salesperson, CS people, grabbing coffee. The intent here is to get additional visibility on what's going on and not over-rely on the vision that the VP of sales is painting for what's going on. This gives you additional data point. Mm-hmm. The mistake is you cannot coach those people. If you're like, oh, like what's going on? Let's listen to a call together. And then you actually coach the salesperson. They're gonna be like, this is awesome. I'm not getting this from my leadership. My leadership is bad. You can't do this because it will undermine or disempower your leadership. Okay, so if they even corner you and be like, Alex, like, this is cool, like we listened to this call together. What do you think I should do differently? Be like, well, I would just listen to your leadership. I mean, honestly, like maybe you could try like diving deeper into the pain, but honestly, whatever your leader says is what you should go with. Okay, so you're using these to get more information and not overly rely on the sales leader as to what's going on in the go-to-market org, but be careful not to do any coaching there because it will undermine your leadership.
Okay, so I have a couple more questions. On forecast, how do you think about forecast versus plan?
Yes.
And how often the forecast
Really
should
great
be
question.
done? Mm-hmm.
So many founders think that the forecast and the plan are the same. They're not. There's 3 revenue numbers that we care about. If we're talking, whether it's churn or like new ARR or whatever, bookings, there's the plan, there's the forecast, and then there's the actual. Okay, so the plan is what we set up at the beginning of the year or whatever our planning cycle is. Like we came into this quarter, like we're in June right now. In Q4, our plan is to do $2 million. That's the plan. Now we're halfway through Q2. What is the forecast for Q2 now that we have information about what's actually happening? And then the actual is obviously what happened. Okay, so a lot of people mess that up. Those are 3 different numbers. The other piece to that, especially in startup world, and this is very related to our scale, is you can set up an annual plan and you should. But if you miss it by 20% in Q2, do not increase hiring to catch up. Mm-hmm. It makes no sense. We're not on an annual cycle. The reason why you missed is because something's fundamentally broken in your go-to-market. By adding more hires into that, you're accelerating your path to bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. So a miss means something's broken, and we almost should slow down and fix it. If we were going to hire 10 salespeople this quarter, maybe we should only hire 4, so we don't accelerate ourselves to bankruptcy, and we buy ourselves a little more time until our next fundraise to get the numbers looking good. Mm-hmm. Right? So you can set up your annual plan, but I actually like to revisit it every quarter to assess whether we should slow down because it's broken, stay this course, or even speed up. And for that reason, it's not crazy to always set a forward-looking 4-quarter plan, even though we're in the middle of the year.
Back to the skip levels.
Yeah.
what are some of the things that I might discover in a skip level that would be worth bringing back to the VP of Revenue and discuss in my one-on-ones with her?
Did we really make the right hire with Brian? Are we sure that, Carl is actually managing well? Do you think that his team respects him?
So kind of like almost more of almost like team health, how are things working, like are things going well or not well, and anything that smells a little wrong is worth just discussing.
There's a broad spectrum, like did we start to lose product market fit? Is the competition eating our lunch? Has demand gen actually quality fallen? Are our salespeople working hard enough? Like are we AI enabled enough? Are they actually taking the mandate seriously? Like there's so much you can tell by just having a cup of coffee with someone deep in the team. And these things also apply in R&D, So did I answer your question, Alex?
Yeah, I think so. It seems
what's your
clear.
takeaways here and what you're going to do?
So my takeaways are, first, the forecast is the foundation. And so accurate forecast is, until we have that, we need to just focus on getting that in place.
I just don't want to be surprised.
Yeah, don't want to be surprised.
Right.
These are, we're the majority of our business is SMB, high velocity. So I'm going to probably want to do a monthly forecast.
Yes, perfect. Yep.
And visit that weekly in one-on-ones. And so basically at the end of the period that we're forecasting, we want to be landing within 5%.
5%, that's good.
How bad is 10%? Like what's the threshold
Yeah,
for
I think 5% is the target.
Okay. And if you're 20%, that's bad.
Really
Something's
bad.
broken.
Especially like, are we talking about the forecast that was given at the beginning of the month or the forecast that was given to me last week before the month ended?
Right.
All right. Okay, Alex, why don't you just tell me where we are? Where are you in your enterprise sales journey?
Okay, so enterprise. So right now the team right now is really, we've got one enterprise seller who's amazing. We have me as the CEO, a lot of, in a new motion especially, I get pulled into these deals sometimes, especially when they get to the later stages.
Yep.
We've got our VP revenue as well, who's kind of loosely involved right now. She's more focused on the SMB stuff. And this is pretty much the team right now, but it's really
I have a couple
this
questions
person.
though.
Yeah.
Where did the enterprise seller come, did you promote them within or did you hire them from the outside?
This one we hired from the outside, but she's somebody that we got to know over like almost 2 years.
Yep.
One of the best sellers in the whole industry, like pretty de-risked. Now that we have this person in seat, we kind of don't need another one of these profiles, and there also aren't that many of these out there in the world. And so now we're thinking the fastest way to scale this motion is probably to promote some of our strongest, or one or two of our strongest SMB sellers at some point. So, there's also some stuff that I missed. We also do have an enterprise CSM.
Yep.
Who really supports this enterprise seller. Enterprise seller is pretty much the quarterback and the relationship owner, and is kind of directing the CSM. And then for some more mature accounts, we are, the CSM might be the relationship owner, but most are living with the seller today. So what is enterprise for business like us? So think about like a large restaurant group, think about like major food group, or on the large end like Chili's or TGI Fridays. Like those are some of the biggest ones. It's based on locations.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the cutoff?
On the low end, it's really 20 locations,
Yep.
but they get up to 100,
Sure.
hundreds. They're some of the largest restaurant groups in the U.S. have like 600 locations, et cetera. So that's really what we mean when we're talking about enterprise.
Yep. How does the buying process and buying committee change between SMB and enterprise?
It's completely different. So, and I am new to enterprise sales, so I didn't really understand what this looks like until we had this person come in and I got to see what it means. It's incredibly time consuming, and it's almost more like consulting, where you are really learning the business in and out. You're learning the stakeholders, you're learning all of the problems that exist in the business and speaking the language of the business, and you're staying in constant contact with like 10 people within the business at the same time. So it's heavily, it's both research-based and relationship-based, and you have to come in almost from a solutions perspective, and it feels almost less like selling software and more like solving a problem, right? So, hey, we've done the research, we know you have this problem, here's how we're gonna solve it with our software solution, which is very different from the SMB sale. The SMB sale could happen in minutes, as you know, our average sales cycle is like 7 days. And those sales are completely different. It's like, hey, let's hop on a demo, let me show you how this thing works. Cool, you like it, great. You wanna sign up? Cool, let's sign up now. Oh, you need to go talk to one other person internally? Cool, let's catch up in a week, and then we'll sell you that. Much faster, fewer stakeholders, less data backed.
Yeah, okay. Has the product requirements, are they different?
So we've actually been surprised that the product requirements are not crazy different, which is actually, I think, unique.
Give me one example of that it is, yeah.
So there's one, so obviously you might expect reporting.
Sure.
So large customers want more robust reporting. So they want to be able to look at their whole portfolio of restaurants and make comparisons and do benchmarking across their portfolio, as well as other similar benchmark across other businesses. So the reporting requirements are heavier. Some enterprise clients will also, within the realm of reporting, might want to export the data in raw format and have that data sent into their data lake and be able to run their own custom reports internally, or have that flow into their data system. So there's that. Other than that, typically the other thing that we've noticed is just a desire to be able to customize the software. So they might not know exactly how they want to customize it, but they want to feel assurance that if there is something that they want customized, that there is some flexibility there. So they want to know that we have some dedicated resources that can build out, some customization on the margin if it ends up being, critical for them. That's huge for these enterprise customers.
Excellent.
And so, well, the only other
go ahead. What else?
The only other thing I was going to draw is so this is the team, and then we have the customer base. So we've got like two chunks here. We have existing pilots, and then we have new business. Now, these are two categories. So we actually have a large number of enterprises that we're already working with that are in some sort of pilot phase of various different, scales. But then we also have this huge new business pipeline that is going super well, but both of these buckets take a lot of time and energy. We have way more than one and even two people can manage. And so what we're trying to think through right now is how do we attack all of this opportunity and and what's the right level of investment? So, and then also, if we bring in more people, do we right now, they're actually both kind of working across these two, and that's actually working pretty well. But now there's a temptation to separate it out and be like, should we have people sellers focused on this portion versus this portion? This seller, she's saying, hey, I don't want to spend time here anymore because I didn't sell most of these deals, I'm new. I've got all these deals here that are really juicy and exciting, and I can influence them a lot more. I want to spend all my time here and none of my time here. And I'm like, well, you're actually pretty good at this stuff, and we actually need our best people here because even though you might not have sold these deals, this is more near-term revenue, and I would rather have, I'd rather you be doing both, but I know that that's not possible. So. So that's the full situation.
Okay, That's a really great breakdown. You've actually done better than most, but there are some holes.
Okay.
So let's kind of go through those and figure out this enterprise bucket.
Perfect.
All right, so Alex actually did a really good job. He's avoided a lot of the potholes. Here's some of the potholes with going upstream by founders. Going to the enterprise. Okay, number one, they spread ops across the team. Hey, let's start selling enterprise accounts, or maybe we have these 10 accounts that are already in there, let's give 2 to each person, really bad. Okay, the theme you're going to understand here is selling to the enterprise is a lot more different than people expect. It's like taking a baseball player and then put him on the basketball court to some degree. They're both athletic, but it's a very different motion. Okay, so he's done a good job of managing that. The second pothole he actually avoided as well, which is to promote the first one internally.
That was an accident.
Good. A lot of people do that. A lot of people promote their best rep or a top performing rep into the enterprise. And again, there's enough risk going on here. I don't want someone to learn enterprise while we learn enterprise as a company. I need an experienced enterprise salesperson to be my first person. I often have to go outside. 90% of founders make this mistake. Okay. Number 3 is they pre-commit revenue, which we covered in the last section, and don't give room for the learning opportunity. So I think Alex is like, did you give the board a number?
We did, and it's actually, there is enterprise revenue in there, but it's light.
Good. So fine, not bad, conservative. Yeah, we're running a test. We're not scaling this up yet. We might get whatever, $1 million out of this on a $20 million business. Conservative. If we miss it by half, it doesn't blow the overall number. So they didn't go hog wild. And then the other one, pothole, is just assuming the buying process, the sales process, and the product requirements are very similar to the SMB. Now, you are lucky, you are unique in the sense that this hasn't been too bad, but you've been educated by your hire on how different this is. And that's why these things are problematic, okay? So what we have to do is let's talk about setting this up. It's almost like, it's almost a good exercise to almost think about this as a separate business, a separate team, a separate demand gen motion, a separate pricing model, a separate quota, a separate product. I mean, obviously you can't go that far, but it helps us to get closer to the answer. Okay, so let's evaluate this using the go-to-market system design that we talk about in the science of scaling. And we'll start on the bottom is the ICP. And right now we're in SMB and we're wanting to go enterprise. On top of the ICP, we're going to talk about the buyer journey or the buying process. In SMB, it's usually like one person sometimes. In enterprise, Alex is feeling this, it's a complicated decision-making unit. Usually there's not one person at Chili's that's just going to say, yes, let's buy Slang.
Totally.
The CFO is going to get involved. The CTO is going to get involved. Some of the person that runs the West for Chili's is going to get involved. They might start with a pilot, et cetera. So it's really important to be able to identify champions and to understand the politics of the organization. That's less important here. Okay, and that's probably what you're seeing on your enterprise seller. And that's leading to the ideal sales process, okay? So if we want one element of the sales process is maybe the qualifying matrix. In SMB, we often use BANT, which is budget, authority, need, timing, because it's one person. In enterprise, we often use MEDDIC. And MEDDIC is metrics, economic buyer, decision process, decision-making unit, identify pain, and champion. It really blows out, and what you're feeling is a lot more consultative, it's a lot more complicated, and that's why we need a different type of seller that understands these things. Okay, now what about the go-to-market team, specifically the sales hire? Okay, here, this person's probably getting like an MQL and keep pretty transactional. These people understand champions. They understand how to maneuver politics within an organization. Like they're very consultative. I mean, these things apply over here, but you can get by without them. You cannot here. And that's why doing this stuff is not going to help with a successful enterprise implementation. Okay, we didn't talk about demand gen.
Right.
Oftentimes, this could be like MQL to inside sales perspective, okay? Oftentimes, we go to ABM, ABS here. Do you know what that is, Alex?
I know what ABM is, account-based marketing, but I don't know what ABS is.
Account-based selling. And what does that mean in your mind?
Basically, you have a fixed number of accounts.
Yes.
Target accounts that you're going after with some intent, right?
Yes, right. So here, we could have more siloed teams. Like we could have marketing over here doing MQLs and holding account. We could have account executives here getting those MQLs and closing. They might not have to meet all the time. We could have account managers and CSMs onboarding those people. Here, because these are so complicated, and also like here, if someone downloads something and then they become a lead and we sell them, if someone downloads something at Chili's, that's just a data point. We're still cold calling them, different people. There's like 50 people at Chili's we're going after.
Right.
With different messages depending on who they are. And so this is almost like a account team where it's like we're working together as the digital marketer, as the SDR, as the account executive, as the account manager. We're trying to get Chili's together.
Right.
And the AE is going to the trade show because the president of Chili's is speaking, and the SDR is cold calling the various directors of like the various regions with certain messages, right? So we're taking a joint effort to this. The other piece to this is, well, just from like another sales motion, oftentimes you'll do a land and expand here.
Right.
It's interesting that you would expect enterprises to be able, and this is like full adoption maybe right away. Mm-hmm. You would think that enterprises could tackle more complicated problems, but it's actually usually opposite. The enterprises, it takes, like if a small restaurant was like, oh yeah, let me just implement a voice system, they can do it in a week. Mm-hmm. It could take them a quarter because they're just very complicated organizations that you need to do this with. Now, the other key part is what you had written up about existing accounts versus new accounts. And a lot of people get this wrong as well. So what we'd have to do is we have to go through a decision process to decide essentially whether to have hunters and farmers or to have a full cycle person, okay? The first question is the percentage of the lifetime value potential of the account that's captured in the first sale, okay? If it's greater than, say, 70%, then let's specialize. So we're gonna have an AM own the account after, and I'm gonna keep my hunter hunting, okay? If it's less than 70%, then I have to ask the next question. You're gonna have to work with. The next question is, how hard is the expansion? Expansion complexity to get the rest of the amount. If it's easy, like they're just gonna trip compute wires, then I'm gonna specialize, and I'm not gonna waste that enterprise seller on that activity. But if it's hard, like I have to go to meet with the Chili's in Asia, and I have to go meet with the CFO, and I have to sell this new product in, which is a totally different thing, then I want my account executive to own the account after. I suspect you're here.
It's that, for sure.
And so like,
because we're a new product, so our category has just gotten to the maturity stage where we are, we're credible enough, we're needed, or a lot of champions are now starting to bring us in and be like, and understand, hey, this is a proven technology, this can benefit our organization, but because we're a new category, there's still a lot of internal selling to do even once we're in the account.
And so you have to probably win that respect or ownership or buy-in from your account executive, because she's working really hard in the beginning to build all these relationships, to build all this institutional knowledge. And if she's only landing with 20% of the opener, the other 80% is going to someone, you lose that all those relationships, all that knowledge is handed off, and the skill set required to get the other 80% is there, okay? And that's how you're gonna wanna think about all your future hires as well. Now, the other poke I'll make is, okay, you found this experienced enterprise seller that has been selling in your industry for a decade with success. That, I agree, that is a gem. I don't think she's the only person in the world.
Correct.
That does that.
It feels that way sometimes.
Sometimes, okay? So
but
you
I know
probably
it's
have
not
to
true.
work hard on the recruiting front, okay? The other thing is, if you can't find that, you have to make and you still want to add enterprise salespeople, you certainly can create a program to promote from within, and I think you should. I also think you need to be able to hire from the outside. You might have to choose between either hiring someone who is a very successful enterprise salesperson, but maybe sells in general SaaS. Maybe they come out of maybe they're doing HR tech, but they're selling big complicated deals in a very consultative nature to complicated decision-making units, but they don't have the restaurant hospitality experience. Or you can go find someone who has all 10, 20, 15 years experience, but they're like a 50% performer. Right. I can guarantee you the first one's going to win. And that is a mistake that many founders make, is they overweight industry experience at the expense of proven enterprise sales experience. I would much rather teach someone how restaurants work than to try to teach them how to do really good enterprise selling. And that might be a source of talent for you as you scale.
Question is, so you hit the nail on the head. We're land and expand. We're like pretty squarely here.
Yep.
So if we're here, what's the role of the CSM, and what is the team that you have to build around?
Great point, because like a lot of people see this and they get confused. They're like, oh, they're going to be AM and they're going to be SDR and they're going to be CSMs. No, there's a team there. It's just that they're running point. Okay, so when she sells like the Northeast Chili's, the CSM goes in, they implement all the accounts, they follow up with the people on the front line to make sure things are happening, and then they're communicating back to the account, hey, guess what? They just hit their first success, they're live, the numbers are working, so then the account exec is gonna go call the Northwest person, and go one higher up and get their champion, be like, hey, we should talk about like starting the process in some other regions. So they're acting as a team together.
Okay, cool.
The other, actually, we forgot another component of the go-to-market system, and I'm gonna sneak it in here, which is compensation, okay? So in here, often, this is very first revenue for the account executive. So you close the deal, brand new account, I'm gonna comp you on that, and any sort of expansion might be going to the account management team and they don't really get comped. You can't do that here, and you can't, this is both new and expansion. And they're equal, if not expansions more. Oftentimes people make expansion less, but that will fight the land and expand preferred model, because they'll try to make the first deal big, because that's how they get comped, and that slows down the sales cycle. I almost like to make that 10% more, so they make the first deal small from a comp standpoint, and make it easier to buy, faster, get it in there, and then expand it.
So what does that look like? Different commission rates on new versus expansion?
Yeah, at least the same. You could just do like, you have a $1.5 million quota, $1 that's new is the same as $1 that's expand. Or you can say it's a $1.5 million quota, we pay you 5% on new and 6% on expand.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does ABM actually look like? Like, how do you get an ABM program off the ground? I have an amazing marketing leader who's really optimized the engine for SMB. And now that we're starting to go into enterprise, we're starting to talk about, now we need to start diverting some spend to enterprise. And I'm like, well, into what? Like we haven't run any experiments yet. We don't have anything set up. Yeah. So how do you even go from 0 to 1?
There's all the stages of the process of awareness.
Right.
The purchase, and then like the success and expansion, okay? So we have a team that's all together in a pod. There's a CM that's doing this, there's an AE that's doing this, and then there's an SDR that's doing this, and there could be a digital marketer, depending on what works. Like in some cases, marketing doesn't work for a buyer, so you don't have one, you just have the SDR. Sometimes cold outreach doesn't work, so you just have marketing. But my guess would be you're gonna have all of these, and they work as a team, and they might be assigned to, depending if you do segment, do you think, at scale, would you segment this by, you probably would segment by territory, or is there type of restaurant?
We segment by territory.
Yeah, okay, so this would be like the Southeast team.
Right.
Okay, and the Southeast team has 20 major accounts in the Southeast, and they'll meet in the morning and be like, okay, cool, let's try to get into Chili's. Like, we've identified 50 key people in Chili's. You take the directors and just cold call them all. You take LinkedIn and ads and run ads against them. I'm gonna go put together some really fancy collateral and send it out to them. And then, hey, by the way, we closed Applebee's last week. How are we doing with the Applebee's deployment? Right, so they're working as an account team. That's what it looks like. Now, this person, they may work across, they may just be the ABM for all territories. Right. Like it doesn't have to be full one FTE. It's just like maybe it's 20% of this person's time and they show up to the meeting and they spend 20% of their time and 20% of their budget to support the efforts of the ABM efforts in the Southeast.
Got it. Okay. And so for a company that's going enterprise for the first time, I'm sure there's lots of different strategies of ABM, right? If you were to do, like if you were me, what would you tell my marketing leader to run as like the first experiment or the first 1 to 3 experiments, just in terms of like type of experiment? Is it like doing an event, like I know, like, you know, a dinner? Is it taking prospects to a sports event?
AI has changed us a bit in this current climate. We're seeing a lot of traction with outside, okay? So I think the last 20 years, we've spent increasing the ACV that we can close over Zoom, all the way up to millions of dollars in the COVID era. Because of all the noise out there, as well as because of the, this is the first time someone's buying a system like this, and there's a heavy amount of trust and relationship involved, we're seeing the ACVs come down. So I think there's going to be an outside sales process and furthermore, an outsized demand gen process. So I do think, like, especially starting out where you're not going to come out of the gate with like $100 million revenue target for the enterprise team. Like we don't need something of that scale. My guess would be in-city dinners where you mentioned you already have like 10 or so key accounts. Right. If you have Applebee's and you have who would be the most important person? Like who's usually making the decision? Is it
usually it's the COO, the like chief operator.
So let's just ask a favor, right in her backyard. It's like around the corner. I'm going to host you for dinner in Austin and I'm going to invite 7 peers. And it's like, come have dinner with the CEO of Applebee's and we're going to talk about the future of AI in restaurants. We're not going to talk about Slang that much. Right. We're just going to talk about like change management, all the stuff around it, and then you're going to repeat that in the major cities. That will get you to tens of millions of dollars. All right, so that was a lot of information. Just to recap, today we talked about 1, expanding to new markets and expanding to new products while balancing scaling the known and hitting that revenue target while expanding the TAM. Number 2, how do you manage your new VP of sales through this process as founder without micromanaging, but also not giving them too much slack at the same time? And then number 3, the all famous going upstream. What is different about that? What are the potholes? And how do you pull it off with success? All right, folks, that's our show today. So don't forget, click on that description. And come on, you seriously haven't subscribed to the show yet? I'm going to invest in your competitor.
There we go. Yeah.